campaign
And
brand.
if y'all say this the Bible, I don't want the whole Bible. No, y'all get mad. Elder Mike and others want to spiritualize the text or look at it through a New Testament lens, boy. I'm looking at it through a different lens. Peter never believed all this. Peter taught all this.
King Corn beats be killing shit.
We was powers on this earth once, and we was all about the mirth once. Idol worship, murder like the first of the month. Hit a nigga with the bit like he need a light. That's what you do when you on fourth, or else you got a punt. But we ain't needed when we cry for Egypt flesh, nah. So it's Egypt that we got, and we hella mad. These crackers soaring off our shoulders like some helipads. They see our sweat, but they don't feel us like we holograms. I'll be damned, another black man shot again.
The Torah tells us, the prophets say, that 10 people out of every one of the 70 nations will grab a corner of one of the tzitzit, meaning that every Jew that wears at least one of these tzitziot that has 4 corners will have 700 people around each corner, total of 2,800 Gentiles around him, asking him, teach us Torah, because our fathers lied to us. This is a verse that's in the Torah. It's a verse that's in the prophets. Teach us Torah because our fathers lied to us. We don't have all the information. So every Jew will have 2,800 students, if you will, Gentiles, that want to learn Torah from him. Now, of course, they want him to continue learning. They want him to continue doing what he's doing in order to continue teaching them. In return for him teaching him, they're going to do everything else that's necessary, whether that is run the bakery or run the building or, do all the things that are practically necessary for things to function, just like they already do now. You already work at a certain job because that job is necessary for the world, whether it's a police department or a fire department or a bakery or a hospital or, a nursery or whatever it is, things that are, in essence, necessary for the world. So these people that want to learn Torah, they can't just decide to abandon everything and just learn Torah all day and all night. The world still has to function. As the Rambam says, the world will still function to a certain extent, no different than what it is now. So who's going to be the ones that going to do it? It's going to be the Gentiles that do it. Why? Because in return for their teacher having the time to learn what he needs to learn in order to teach them what they want to learn, in essence, their form of payment of doing it is going to be them functioning the world, running the world.
Let me be quiet because I don't want none of this nonsense. I don't want none of this nonsense. Now, did wicked Christianity have us thinking we're going to just be sitting around playing harps in heaven? No, don't you start that nonsense. Don't you start that nonsense. And we're talking a difference with the eternal state and the millennial reign. Now, is his version any worse than Az and them camps' version? I want to ask y'all, is his version any worse than Az? He ain't talking about raping. He ain't talking about nothing to race. He just talking about everybody that's going to be teaching Torah, going to be Jew, going to be Israel, and the other people in return just to work the other jobs and take care of the business because the world's still going to function. Peter never believed all this. Peter taught all this.
Now Marianne, he's supposed to say it's more portable. He talking good. Is this what the apostles were saying with the middle wall petition being broke down? To say there's no equality. There's still distinction.
So his problem is like, how can this be true if the middle wall of partition is broken down? So if you were ready to get to the part that I was looking forward to the most, Cap, I definitely need you for this part. I'm gonna pull these texts up, and I need you to be the reader.
Come.
I need you, sir. Share the screen real quick. And let me find the window. Yes, man. Oh,
This guy mad about that middle wall of partition, right?
yeah,
he think that done brought everybody in and made everybody joint heirs.
That man
You get a car. You get a car.
He's upset, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I want you to just go ahead and read from start from I don't know if you can see where
Mhm.
my highlight is at.
Right. Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
read from the blue highlight on down, Baba Kashab. This is from a book called Hellenistic Civilization and the Jews. You do need to get this literature. You do
Right.
need to get this literature. We're on page 344. But go ahead when you can.
It says the latter found their expression in the Jewish Hellenistic literature created mainly by the Jews of Egypt. This literature exhibited an interesting and valuable fusion of Greek ideas and Jewish tradition. A
So they're
process.
contrasting cultures right here. This is why we were talking about the middle wall of partition, which is just a barrier, a strong barrier between the so-called Jews and Gentiles, which are in other texts called Jews and Greeks, just depending on what text we're talking about for a couple of reasons. One, because in some cases there were people that were subscribing to Greek customs, and others because they might have been meshed in with other people groups, like the Romans, for example, who were not Greek, although society was in some cases Greco-Roman, but during this period, it was far more Roman dominated. So what we're dealing with is people who were behaving gentilic in nature, but we're going to address directly the Jew versus the Greek, just to preface the purpose of this. Go ahead.
Right. It says a process which reached its apogee in the writings of Philo, whose philosophical ideas set their stamp on the intellectual development of the people of Europe. I can't.
Oh, Salakia, that's
You move it.
yeah.
Where was I at? So like I see, yep. I said a process which reached its apogee in the writings of Philo, whose philosophical ideas set their stamp on the intellectual development of the people of Europe for many generations. Mr. Friedlander, in numerous books, put forward the thesis that the Jews of the diaspora were entirely different from the Jews of Philistine.
So the Jews in the diaspora were entirely different, right? Go ahead.
While the latter followed the Pharisees and enclosed themselves within the four walls of the Jewish traditions.
Romans 2, we was reading earlier, right? Go ahead.
Right. Hellenistic Jewry was imbued with the spirit of inner liberty.
A law unto themselves.
Unto themselves, right. And Jewish religion and ethics evolved within it into a universalistic spiritual legacy.
Yeah, like a universalistic.
Universalistic Salakia, spiritual legacy, right? So all encompassing, right?
Go ahead.
This outlook based on an Salakia,
exaggerated estimate.
Exhilarated estimate on an ignorant of its traditional Jewish elements has now been abandoned, and rightly so, for it is easily demonstrable that the difference between the Philistina Jewry and the Jews of the diaspora was not a difference of principle, but only of degree.
So, you know, it's the Jews that were within the confines of Jerusalem. They were closer to the law, right? But then the Jews that were on the outside, sometimes they had a hint of, you know, what was going on, but it wasn't the same degree, you know, just to give a little bit more insight. And really, this is highlighting the Jews that were in Alexandria, Egypt, versus the Jews that was in Palestine. But we're going to go even further, though. we're going to go even further and talk about the ones that became Gentiles entirely. Go ahead.
Right. It says, obviously, the Hellenizing movement struck deeper roots among the Jews of Alexandria than it did in Jerusalem. But we have seen, I can't see what that is because my thing is blocking it.
Salaki.
My face is blocking it.
I
Right.
got that part. It says, but we have seen above that in Jerusalem, a strong Hellenizing movement had. I'm going to go to the next page. So you could go ahead and skip ahead.
Start at where it says nevertheless, right?
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it cannot be denied that the problems of Hellenization and tradition forced dispersion of Jews in a much more acute form than the current, right, Salakia, than these current, Salakia, man. It's a little blurry, that's why.
My bad.
I'm gonna start again. It says, nevertheless, it cannot be denied that the problem of Hellenization and traditions forced dispersed Jews in a much more acute form than these currents forced the Jews of Palestine.
So basically what it's saying is that Hellenization affected the Jews that was in Palestine, and it affected the Jews that was far away, but the ones that was far away, they were affected way more directly. It was way more harsh on them because they wasn't surrounded by their culture. Go ahead.
Right. It says the crisis thrust upon Jerusalem by the Hellenizing faction was temporary. And after it had passed, national life again took its traditional course. Although in Palestine as a whole, with its numerous Greek cities, Hellenization became general and penetrated by numerous bylaws even into Hasmonean Jerusalem.
Now let's pause there. It says Palestine,
right,
with its numerous Greek cities. Look, so when we tell you that these Greeks and that these Gentiles was Israelites that was estranged, you gonna see that, you know, we're not bullshitting. And it was to the point where, you know, we actually were at odds, and we had precedent for this type of behavior prior to the Hellenistic period. When you look at how we dealt with brothers who couldn't prove their lineage, when we dealt with brothers who was born of a mom of a different nation, you know, we always had smoke for that type of activity. But watch this. Go ahead.
Jerusalem Jewry was strong enough to defend itself, to counter force with force and intellect with intellect. This was not the case with Dispersia Jewry, which internally, which internally much weaker and exposed to immeasurably greater forces from without, was compelled to struggle with external influences, not by a one-time mobilization of national forces, but by a ceaseless, stubborn, day-by-day and hour-by-hour defense of its national heritage.
So it's like a girl being hounded by a bunch of dudes, you know, over and over and over and over again, where one no just ain't enough. You just got to keep no. Imagine if the dudes is a lot more aggressive. You know, now she fighting off multiple hands and things of that nature, because those forces are always coming and trying to take over because they don't know how to act. They have no respect for the culture that they're coming against, right? So this is the diaspora Jews was dealing with.
Right.
What was you gonna say, Cap?
Right. And what does that sound like? That sounds kind of like modern times here in Babylon. Right? Just like it, right?
Exactly.
Day-to-day saturation with the pagan customs, right? The customs of this is nothing but the ancient Greco-Roman stuff, just in a new package.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So we should really be able to empathize with this without issue.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It says the will to this constant and worrisome struggle was not always present, and not every Jew in the dispersia shared it. The lot of Hellenistic Jewry outside Palestine was the lot of every dispersed Jewish group down to our own time. Nor is it disputable that the plight of the Jews as a distinct alien body among the peoples has exercised a decisive influence on the molding of dispersed Jewry itself. To exist in the alien environment, the Jew is forced to develop his spiritual power and to exert his uttermost endeavors, for he is assisted neither by local tradition, personal contacts, language, nor national customs, which in fact impede his efforts to succeed. Hence, the methods of his struggle for existence are frequently quite different from those practiced among the host nations.
Meaning that, you know, the culture that he's amongst is adverse to the culture that he's trying to carry out all by himself, or she's trying to carry out all by herself. Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead.
Kind of says this struggle for existence may be conducted, and actually is conducted, in two opposite ways. Sometimes the will to succeed induced in the Jew a decision. I hope I read all that. A decision to emanate local manners and customs, and to make himself like the host people in every respect.
Woo!
Ooh, oh, that sounds just like Maccabees.
So it causes him to imitate local manners and customs,
Mm-hmm.
and to make himself like the host people in every respect.
Right.
You know, and what you'll find is that Philo, for example, he's known as Jewish, but he's also known as a Greek philosopher who's called Greek, or Hellene, which is translated into Greek. Christians will go to Hellene in the Bible and be like, oh, this person's a Hellene, so this is actual Greek. Hell no.
No.
It just means that their religion, their philosophy was Greek.
That's right.
You know?
Right. This is what it says. It says this is the way of assimilation, which leads the Jew to repudiate his ancestral customs, and sometimes even makes him an unconcealed enemy.
Woo! That's exactly what it says. Makes him an unconcealed enemy of who, though?
Right. I can't see the rest.
It says an unconcealed enemy of the Jewish people.
Right. Who of the gospel? You enemy to the gospel.
You see that? Of his own people. You know, so this is why there's a middle wall of partition. And this is the only way that the middle wall of partition being brought down makes sense, coupled with eschatology culminating in one people ruling over another and being the priests and the princes and the kings, while the Gentiles are learning from those people while they're the plowmen and the vine dressers. So that's daggers that you can get from secular history. This is a fantastic book. It will be a part of my presentation, coupled with a few more sources. But for those of you that's been here at the water for staying tapped in, if you just coming in, please like, share, and subscribe. We're at the midway point now, dealing with this middle wall of partition. And what I was saying was, it's important to note that when you look at the middle wall of partition, you do a disservice when you try to argue that, you know, that's talking about the North and the South coming together, because the North wasn't on the scene like that when we're dealing with the Roman rulership. They were gone. You know what I'm saying? But they are included, whereas there's no wall in between the Jews that subscribe and the rest of Israel. You know, but you don't want to try to dumb it down to just talking about the North. versus south. What it is talking about is how there was a cultural divide between those Israelites, paralleling it with the prodigal son, the son that didn't leave, and then the Israelites that were scattered, the son that did leave, the ones that was jealous because they didn't have a fattened calf slain for them. You understand what I'm saying? It's talking about Israel at large scattered among these nations who estranged themselves from Israel to the point where they became enemies against their brothers and sisters. So hopefully that helped to add clarity. Hopefully that helped to add clarity. We're going to go into Ephesians real quick. Ephesians chapter 2. And we're just going to look at it. And I believe it's verse 15 that we want to start at. Now we actually want to start up higher. We'll actually start at 11. I'm going to share my screen. So Ephesians chapter 2, verses 11, wherefore remember that you being in time past Gentiles in the flesh. Where do we hear talk like this? Gentiles in the flesh. You used to be a Gentile in the flesh. There's no spiritual Israel to where you used to be a Gentile in the flesh and now you're an Israelite in the flesh. That doesn't make sense. If you were a Gentile through your flesh, then you're always going to be the Gentile. But that's not the message that's being conveyed here. Let's look at Romans 2. And we'll look at 28. He is a Jew, which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in spirit and not in the letter, who praise is not of men, but of God. Verse 28 says, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward. So there is a principle for a discussion being there about who's Gentile in the flesh or a Jew in the flesh. We'll add more texture to it. We're going to go to Romans 7. Romans chapter 7, and I think verse 4, 5. For when we were in the flesh, the motions of sin, which were by the law, did work in our members to bring forth the fruit unto death. Let's get Romans 8 and 9. Oops. Romans chapter 8, verse 9. But ye are not in the flesh, but in the spirit, if so be that the Spirit of God dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Christ, he is none of his. And if Christ be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit of life because of righteousness. But if the Spirit of him that raised up Yahushua from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Hamashiach from the dead shall also quicken, which is to bring to life your mortal bodies by the Spirit, by his Spirit that dwelleth in you. So what it's telling you is that there is a transformation that takes place by being in the flesh. These people were Gentiles in the things that they did fleshly and how they behaved themselves, who were also called uncircumcision. Being called uncircumcision by the circumcision is what is the topic here, just meaning that the Jews who stayed in the land, kept the customs, who adhered to the law, made their boast in the law. You know, they're boasting against the people who were not circumcised. That's all this is talking about. Yahushua dying and tearing down the middle wall of partition allows them to repent, come back, keep the law, statutes, and commandments, and being able to have to partake of the commonwealth. How do we know this? Well, let's just simply read. Let me make this bigger too. Ephesians chapter 2, and we're at 12. That at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. Let's look at the tools here. Being aliens. Apolotrio. It means to alienate, estrange, to be shut out from one's fellowship. What should we be looking at here? That they're entitled to it to begin with. So what's one way an Israelite loses fellowship with his people? Something that he's entitled to. What gets you cut off from among your people? What are some examples? Not keeping the Shabbat, maybe. Not being circumcised on the 8th day. That's the Abrahamic covenant. So if you're uncircumcised in your flesh by them which are called circumcision and estranged from the commonwealth, it's because you're cut off from among the people. We're in a cultural climate where people are being Hellenized. They estrange themselves from the rest of their people, sometimes on their own volition, to give up their heritage to the point where they'll even become enemies against their own people. That's what's being revealed before us in these scriptures. So let me go back because we're not done reading that. So at that time, you were without Hamashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. You were estranged from your own commonwealth, which are your rights, your heritage of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise. But you were removed from that. The heathen can't be removed from it. It was never theirs to begin with. So the wording here is all wrong if it's saying that, oh, he's bringing the heathen to God now, and now they can be involved, because it never belonged to them in the first place. The subject being the commonwealth, or even being the covenants of promise, never belonged to the heathen. Do you follow me? If I'm talking good, if you're understanding where this is coming from and where this is going, I need the fire in the chat. I need you to like, share, and subscribe so that the nation at large can see this information, so that they can better defend the gospel with some historicity as well. So we're not just being victims of crackers or other heathen that know Greek language a little better. We know the history that goes to these Greek words, so we can see the different ways that they're used, and we can see the cultural climate of the people of this book. So they were strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now Hamashiach Yahawashi, but now in Hamashiach Yahawashi, ye who were sometimes far off are made near by the blood of Hamashiach. For he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down that middle wall of partition between us. We don't have to be enemies no more. You don't have to stay on the outside because you didn't get circumcised on the 8th day. You can get circumcised by faith the way Abraham did. Right? Did Abraham get circumcised on the 8th day? No, he got circumcised as a grown-ass man. The same way Moses did. This was out of faith, not pertaining to the letter of the law. You come back to this, you come to the truth, you repent, you believe in Yahweh, well, it's grace and mercy. Guess what? If you have that faith, you can put that sign of the covenant in your flesh. You don't have to be far off anymore. You can now partake in the commonwealth that you are entitled to, right? For he is our peace, and hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us, having abolished in flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in the ordinances, for to make in himself twain one new man, so making peace. Because when you transgress certain laws, you can't be among your people no more. And that he might reconcile both, unto God in one body by the cross. I don't believe this actually says reconcile, but I want to look in the Greek real quick. I don't believe having shrine. Let me see. To reconcile completely, to reconcile back again. So that's a dagger. Bring back a former state of harmony. The Gentiles never had a former state of harmony when it came to the Most High. They was never with the Most High. However, they were always allowed to come through as long as they weren't Ammonites or Moabites. Look, we're going to look. Amos 3. Amos chapter 3. A lot of you know where I'm going. It says, hear this word. The Yahweh have spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up out of the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. So there's no sense of familiarity with these other nations. It was us that the Most High knew. All right, so we're being punished for our iniquities. We're being cursed. And some of them curses was going to be that our eye would be evil towards our own brothers, culminating in what we just read in Hellenistic civilization and the Jews and other passages that you'll see me bring out when the Lord allows me to put forth this presentation I'm working on. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe so that you see it when it comes out. We're going to move forward. So we done with Ephesians. I'm going to go to Colossians chapter 1. Colossians. I'm going to go to 1 and 21. And you that were sometimes alienated, estranged, separated, and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now hath he reconciled, brought back. That's the middle wall of partition. You know, you don't got to cut that man off from among his people anymore. Isaiah 59. Isaiah 59. And behold, Yahweh's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, neither his ear heavy that it cannot hear, but your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid his face from you that he will not hear. So that's what it's talking about. These Christians got to stop playing. We got to start holding them to the flame. That's what we do at Fire of God through the Spirit of the Most High. So again, like, share, and subscribe. But if you are a brother and you want to join the ministry, hit us up at fireofgodclassroom@gmail.com. The email is on the screen. And now it's more important than ever that we do so, because look, sitting on our hands is going to get us that thermonuclear destruction. That's just facts. So now I'm going to play a little bit more of this video, a little bit more of the media.
That for Gentile, it's just a student master situation. That's all it is.
Now, Dunamis, as is behind the scenes talking about, now, thanks to me, now Christians know what we teach behind the scenes. How are Jews and Israelites coming to pretty much the same conclusion? They ain't saying what you saying as. He's saying y'all.
He ain't saying as, he's saying as in A-Z. So he obviously let another Israelite on here, but he wasn't trying to let your brother Ash on here for whatever reason. I'm not saying I'm nobody, I do learn from some of the best. And, I read these scriptures, not just for the precept 1-2 punch package, but for the context and stand in faith, which we want to equip brothers to do at Fire of God. So again, hit up fireofgodclassroom@gmail.com so we can work with you too, so that we can spread this fire of God across the world and burn this bitch up when it comes to this Babylonian construct. So we could burn up the Christian doctrine, so we could burn up these false ideologies together, giving all glory to the Most High, of course.
I love talking about the subject. We was bringing these subjects to the table before we met you, as he said, the bitter and the sweet. And he said, we both getting our conclusion from the scripture. We can read where God says the Israelites are above all other people. Don't fault us for teaching that. I've been saying, I said I could bring up the white Bible. I could bring up the curly-haired Jew that teach the same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, but Moran, is this tearing down the wall of partition?
This ain't tearing down nothing. If the wall is torn down, all of this is nonsense.
You see that, man? I have to force everything through this Christian lens, which is foggy and dirty and filthy. It's been spat upon. It's coated in excrement. And so they don't see clearly. If the middle wall of partition is torn down, this don't mean nothing. So all prophecy is negated, even when it comes to the return of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. You see how retarded the Christian church is? You see how important it is as men that we get out there and do this work? You brothers that know better, you can't just say, I know better, and sit in the house and tell your family at cookouts that, oh, you got to repent, you can't eat that pork. You got to help us go out there and get it in so that we can free people from these dumbass thought processes. I'm one man out here in Dallas by myself as far as Fire of God go. Captain Azariah, he got a 2-man, 3-man crew as of right now. We got a brother in St. Louis, he by himself right now. And we growing through the spirit of the Most High. All praises to the Most High. But there is strength in numbers when it comes to how much ground you can cover. We need help because our brothers need help. We got to bring in this harvest. A lot of brothers and sisters are going to die stupid. And that's not something I say jokingly. It's something that frustrates me. It's something that breaks my heart every day. And while we cannot seal anything beyond the number that the Most High said was going to be sealed, it's my heart's desire that we do so with the most expedience, expeditiously, as Morgan Freeman would say.
All of this is nonsense. Dispensationalism got to go in the straight garbage can. Now it got to be dumpster juice leaking out the back of the garbage truck.
And now you see why certain folks.
Now he making it sound like the servant is above. He said, "Oh, the master, the servant can take the bed." I don't know, boy. I don't want none of this. I don't want none of this.
And then we got to see more talking, sages and whatnot.
I receive
because is this a PR campaign, Brian?
And if y'all say this the Bible, I don't want the whole Bible.
Whoa!
Bible.
What did the black say? What did the black say?
Above. He said, "Oh, the master."
What did the BLACC say?
The servant can take the bed. I don't know, boy. I don't want none of this. I don't want none of this.
And then we got to see more talking, sages and whatnot.
I receive
because is this a PR campaign, Brian?
And if y'all say this the Bible, I don't want the whole Bible.
Campaign, Brian.
And if y'all say this the Bible, I don't want the whole Bible.
If y'all say it's the Bible, I don't want the whole Bible. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. He that believeth on me, as the scriptures have said, is what Yahweh Shai said.
I want the whole Bible. If this is what it got to be right here, I'm beneath you. You folk above me.
But here's the confrontation. Something about you can't get over the fact that you think these are the people. He'll say he don't think these are the people. But it's something in his mind is telling him, damn. And I feel the same way when it comes to how can this be the salt of the earth. But let's be 100% factual. No matter who the Israelites are, the scriptures say what they say about the Israelites. And no matter who the Gentiles are, the scriptures say what they say about the Gentiles. I don't know about you, brothers and sisters, but I believe in the totality of the Bible. And it says what it says. We cannot negate prophecy because of how we feel.
King Corn beats be killing shit.
We was powers on this earth once, and we was all about the mirth once. Idol worship, murder like the first of the month. Hit a nigga with the bit like he need a light. That's what you do when you on fourth, or else you got a punt. But we ain't needed when we cry for Egypt flesh, nah. So it's Egypt that we got, and we hella mad. These crackers soaring off our shoulders like some helipads. They see our sweat, but they don't feel us like we holograms. I'll be damned, another black man shot again.